These are the stone fortifications of Akka. In the late 19th century, the Ottoman Empire utilized this coastal fortress as a high-security penal colony. It was a notoriously toxic settlement where political dissidents and high-profile prisoners were sent, often to be forgotten. Inside this prison was a man who had lived in state-mandated exile and captivity since he was 9 years old. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at a hidden historical narrative that began in a dungeon and ended with a proposal for a new world order. This forgotten captive, despite being denied any formal schooling, somehow emerged from 42 years of imprisonment to present specific, structural proposals for international peace to a world on the brink of total war. The origins of this movement date back to the mid-19th century Middle East. Two figures, known as the Bab and Baha'u'llah, began preaching a religious framework that challenged the existing power structures of the region. They taught that humanity had reached a stage of maturity requiring the abolition of the priesthood, equal rights for all people, and a single unified human race. The Persian and Ottoman empires viewed these ideas as an existential threat. As seen in this photograph, followers were bound together by iron stocks and massive chains, forced to live in subterranean dungeons. The pressure to recant was immense. Historical records describe a father and his 14-year-old son who were led to execution in chains. The boy was offered a pardon if he would simply curse the name of Baha'u'llah. He refused, and the authorities carried out his execution in front of his father. The empires assumed that this level of violence would crush the movement. They didn't realize they were facing an ideology so resilient that its followers were documented meeting their executions with a sense of joyous ecstasy rather than submission. Following Baha'u'llah's death, leadership passed to his son Abdu'l-Baha. Exiled since childhood, he was educated entirely within prison walls. Yet he became a master of Arabic and a formidable philosopher, astonishing visiting theologians by resolving complex doctrinal disputes without a single reference book. To those around him, this intellectual dominance was a paradox. It suggested his authority derived from something far deeper than conventional worldly training. While still a prisoner, Abdu'l-Baha began hosting dinners for people of wildly different backgrounds. It was common to see 7 or 8 different nationalities and religions, groups often at war elsewhere, sharing a single table in friendship. He often used irony to disarm guests. He told a story of an official asking a madman to translate a dog's barking, believing the insane had a direct line to God. The madman looked at the official and asked why he assumed he could speak the language of a dog, in this case, Kurdish. He also operated a clandestine network of charity. When a shopkeeper in Damascus lost everything in a massacre, Abdu'l-Baha privately sent financial aid and letters of encouragement, providing the resources necessary for the man to start his life over. Instead of organizing a political uprising against his captors, he focused on practical applications of unity. He treated his philosophy as something to be lived, rather than just discussed. The geopolitical landscape shifted in 1908. The Young Turk Revolution forced open the prison gates, and after 42 years of captivity, Abdu'l-Baha was finally granted his freedom. He moved to the slopes of Mount Carmel in Haifa, seen here in this archival photograph. From this vantage point, he began transitioning from local charity to a global advocacy for peace. As the world moved toward the First World War, he wrote urgently to the West. He argued that the era of aggressive nationalism was coming to an end and that humanity needed to reorganize itself. He proposed a series of specific global systems to prevent future conflict. These included the adoption of a universal auxiliary language to facilitate communication, and the creation of an international educational system designed to be free from racial and religious bias. His core message was simple. Being a Baha'i meant to love all the world and to dedicate oneself to the service of humanity. If you find these historical insights valuable, please subscribe and share this video to help us uncover more stories like this one. Abdu'l-Baha spent nearly half a century as a prisoner of the state, yet his specific calls for global unity and structural reform ultimately outlasted the very empires that spent decades trying to